Faith, it's Grandma. It's Friday. It's March the 16th, and I'd like to show you how to make something else. Last week I showed you how to make gnocchi, so I thought this week I'd show you how to make a real simple chicken soup, and then you can use the gnocchi in it. You can use gnocchi or you can use noodles also. So first I'll tell you what you're going to need. First of all, you're going to need a couple of measuring cups, the 1 cup and the half a cup. You're going to need the half a teaspoon and the teaspoon measuring spoon. Mine is all in one. I can move it to be either or. And you're going to need some cut up chicken. You're going to need some spices, salt and pepper, half a teaspoon of each, and then you're going to need a teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of sage, and a teaspoon of marjoram. Marjoram is almost like oregano, only it's just a little bit milder. And you're going to need a couple of carrots, a couple of celery sticks, and a small onion or half of a large onion. So I've already done the vegetables, Faith. I've cut up the 2 carrots, and I've cut up the celery, and I've cut up the onion, and also I took a large clove, just 1 large clove of garlic, and cut it up really small, and I sauteed them in some olive oil. You can use olive oil, or you can use just cooking oil, canola oil, and a couple teaspoons of that. And you just saute it, or it's almost like stir frying. I use this pot so you could see better. For about 5 minutes, stay with it and keep moving it around, because you don't want anything to burn, because then your soup will have a burnt flavor. I wanted to tell you something about the onions and the celery and the carrots. They are called, in French cooking, they're called the Holy Trinity, because you use them in so many different recipes, in soups, you use them in stews. Their flavors go really well together, and use them in meat pies. So in French cuisine, they're called the Holy Trinity. And in Cajun cuisine, which is kind of from cooking from New Orleans, from Louisiana, from down south in the States, kind of a mix between Caribbean and Mexican. Their Holy Trinity is onions, celery, and peppers, like green pepper, I guess, or red pepper, one of those sweet peppers. And in religion, the original Holy Trinity, many Christian religions believe in the Holy Trinity, and that's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I won't get into that, but if you're interested, you can always Google it. All right, we've got our sauteed vegetables. They're all done. Now to that we're going to add the spices. So that's a teaspoon of thyme, a teaspoon of sage, and a teaspoon of marjoram, half a teaspoon of salt, half a teaspoon of pepper. Oh, another thing I wanted to show you, Faith, was just how big to cut up the celery and the carrot. Not too big. You don't want it to be big chunks. And also the onion, you even want to cut up smaller, because there's nothing worse than big onions in cooking. Okay, so we put the spices in, and now we're going to add the chicken broth. And all it is chicken broth that you buy. You can make chicken broth at home, and I'm sure it's probably better, but the chicken broth that you can buy these days is pretty good, and you see even a lot of the professional cooks on TV using it. So I'm using the no-name brand. I'm going to see if it's as good as the ones that I usually buy, like Campbell's or whatever. And so that's 4 cups. 900 millimeters is 4 cups of chicken broth, and we're going to add that right to the pot that has the sauteed vegetables in it. Just takes a minute. Well, I'm glad to hear that you went to see The Wrinkle in Time yesterday, Faith. It sounds like you're having a pretty good spring break. And you got to stay overnight at Niagara Falls. Pretty cool. You had a room with a view of the falls. Wow, your big sister was pretty good to you this week. Okay, we've got the broth in there, Faith. Another thing that you want to put in is, if you have it, is parsley. Now what I do when I have a recipe for parsley, I buy a bunch of it, and usually there's way too much. And if I don't have to do it, if I don't do another recipe with parsley within a few weeks, it starts getting pretty, I usually end up throwing it out. So what I do now is I use what I need for a recipe, and with the rest of it, I chop it up just like that. And then you just put it in a plastic bag and you freeze it. And then when you want some, you just take a handful out and you've got it for soup. So it's another way to add some vitamins into your meals, and it looks pretty. Now I'm going to put that back on the stove and heat it up. And then I'm going to, once it gets heated up a little bit, I'm going to add the chicken to it. I don't really want the chicken to cook anymore. And as I said when I started, the chicken is from a barbecue chicken that I bought in the grocery store. And I'm going to do one of these little video shows for you just about a barbecue chicken. Because I bet you I can tell you, well, I know I can show you about 10 different ways to use a barbecue chicken. And it's so easy. And from one barbecue chicken for myself, I can get about 6 different lunches and suppers out of it at least. And so healthy, so quick and easy. I think so I would wait, normally you can wait a minute till it heats up. Let's just put it in. Okay, the chicken's in there. So you would just heat that up just until it starts to boil. You don't want to overcook, everything is cooked in there now. And the last thing that you would put in is your noodles, or in this case I'm going to put my gnocchi in. Now this is what I made, some of what I made last week. And remember I froze them? Well, I took these out of the, some of these out of the freezer a couple hours ago, so they're just like when I made them. So when the water starts boiling, I'm going to put these in for 1 to 2 minutes. And there, it's going to be cooked, and it's going to be an awesome supper. Well, I hope you like that recipe, Faith. And if you were just making it for yourself for lunch, or if you were making it maybe for you and your mom, or for Simeon and just a couple of you, that would be enough. But if you were making it for 5 or 6 people, well, then you might want to add. You could add another cup or 2 of broth, or you could add a can of diced tomatoes with the juice, and then just increase the spices and the vegetables by a little bit, and then you'd have it for more people. Another tip that I'll tell you about it is, if you're not going to eat all the soup at once, don't put all the noodles in at once. What I would do is don't put any noodles in or any gnocchi, and cook them on the side, and then just serve the soup and add the cooked gnocchi, or the which you would have just cooked in boiling water, and the noodles also. Just add it into the bowl, and then add the soup with the vegetables. Because if you add the noodles, say if I added the noodles now, and then I was going to have some more of the soup tomorrow, and I would have to heat the soup up again tomorrow, then the noodles would be too soft. That's the soup, Faith. I hope you like it. And next week, maybe I'll tell you all those barbecue chicken tips that I have. Bye, Faith. Have a good night.